Okay, hi everyone, and welcome to this RTS Futures session on taking the work out of networking, we've chirpily called it. We really hope that you are joining tonight from your bedrooms, from your offices, from your parents' houses, and we hope it's going to be a really lovely and really productive hour where you can take the learnings from our wonderful panelists into your own lives and into your careers for networking. So if you're new to our RTS Future sessions, then I'd like to say a huge welcome to you. And if you're returning to us again, welcome back. Thanks to all of you for joining us. RTS Futures, as you may or may not know, holds free monthly events for graduates and those in the early stages of their TV careers. We cover a wide range of topics across all TV output, drama, comedy, journalism, reality, you name it, we cover it. And through our events, we provide top tips and guidance on everything from CV writing to formats, to development, to networking, which is why we're here. And hopefully it will all help you on your way to a fruitful and productive career. So first, some housekeeping. Please, I'm sure we all know, keep yourself muted. For the sake of us, it will really help us if no one is speaking over us. And,
there to protect us, can't actually protect us.
There we go. That is our first, because this isn't a webinar. You will need to mute yourselves because the whole point is we're hoping that people will be able to make themselves heard if they want to at the end when we come to the Q&A. But for now, I'm just going to go through some housekeeping. Thank you, Kirsty. So if you look on your screen, you will see that if you could keep your videos on, that is really, really nice for us. It really helps us if we're not speaking into a void. So if you do feel comfortable, please switch your video on. I know it's dark, I know it's dingy, but it's really, really nice for us to see your faces. And please, if we're not coming through clearly, switch off other apps, switch off other programs. That will speed things up for you. As I said, please stay on mute and please use the chat to make a little self-introduction. And please do send Kirsty a message, Kirsty Whitaker, if something isn't working for you. And treat this as if we're in person, as if it's an in-person event, even though I appreciate it is over Zoom and everyone is probably very tired of Zoom by this point. But thank you so much. So to begin the networking, we are actually going to be sharing Twitter and LinkedIn names and handles. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share the handles of the panelists who have shared them with me prior, and also the producers of tonight's session. So I'm at Church of Daisy on Twitter. Reem, my co-producer, thank you Reem, is at Media Gazelle. Jasmine Dotiwala, one of our fabulous panelists, is at Jasmine Dotiwala, and Simone is at the TV Collective. And I've been told by Andrew that he hasn't used his Twitter in about 5 years, and that's not because he's not an absolutely fabulous networker. It's purely just because he doesn't like to be distracted when he's doing the real business of networking and selling formats across the seas. So that is why. And closed captions are available for you. If you want them, you need to click the CC button at the bottom of your Zoom portal. So for context, I am Daisy Church, as you'll be able to see on your screens. I'm the Screen Industry Program Manager and Content Producer at Media Trust. Media Trust are a charity that connect the screen and creative industries with charities, people from disadvantaged backgrounds, young people. So we basically try and bridge the gap between those two communities. I began my career about 9 years ago as a runner, and then researcher in factual TV before moving into development and then across into charity film production. I now love a good networking event, a film festival, meet and greet, a Zoom room, and I even train my film, TV and gaming mentees on how to create a compelling self-introduction and cultivate a network. But this wasn't always the case. I began my career in TV full of fear when it came to networking and with a very high cringe factor towards it. But forming and curating your network in the TV industry is as crucial as any more tangible skills like being able to edit or being able to write a pitch. No one in our industry works in a vacuum, and having a solid network of contacts who have your back, will share opportunities with you and put you forward for your next contract is very key to your success. But this, as a new starter, we appreciate feels like the most daunting task in the world sometimes. Now we've managed to mostly avoid networking the past 18 months. I mean, who knew you can network in your pajamas from your bedroom without actually showing your face? But we have managed it. As we emerge back into the world, the RTS committee thought we could all do with advice from some of the best in the business, and they are here with us today. So it is my pleasure now to hand it over to our panel. We have 3 people here with us today who have made networking their full-time job, often alongside their actual full-time job. And I have zero doubt that they will do a better job of introducing themselves to you than I ever could. So I'm going to hand over first to the inescapable queen of the network, though she may say differently, Jasmine Dotiwala.
Thank you, Daisy. I would say differently. Honestly, the word network and networking makes me shudder. It always has made me shudder. I don't like the idea of having to network. I've always avoided the idea of networking like the plague. So the fact that I'm on this panel is quite wild. But yeah, here I am about to share some hacks. So hi, everyone. I'm Jasmine Dotiwala. I've been working in TV for around 25 years across very varied and numerous roles as head of department, manager, broadcaster, producer, director, columnist at brands like Netflix UK, Media Trust alongside Daisy, Channel 4 News, MTV, Sky News, and more. I'm a multimedia reporter and a producer. I also have a reputation as being an inclusion leader for Screen Industries. I started my career in the 90s on The Big Breakfast Show, which was on Channel 4 back then. And the same company called Planet 24 used to make the 90s biggest youth culture show, and that was called The Word. And the way I got into running and then presenting was I was asked to stand in for an absentee final show auditionee for the presenter's role for the new presenter on The Word. And because of a diversity tick box at Channel 4, I ended up getting the role. And I know that it was a diversity tick box because I turned up at this final audition, supposedly just to make up the numbers. And the other 5 people in the room happened to be brown females like me of some different persuasion. So I immediately clicked early in my career that that's how diversity worked. And, you know, often my network is probably because I'm the diverse person in the room. After my time at Channel 4 hosting The Word, I was lucky enough to get a job at MTV as an MTV News host. I stayed at MTV and Viacom for 13 years, always jumping up or sideways every couple of years from presenter to producer to director to heading up 2 of the MTV music channels. And I still go back to MTV every November. I produce at the annual MTV EMA Awards. And that's, I guess, because I've kept connected with my network across Viacom and MTV. Then I've also worked at the BBC and ITV for a few years, launching new music shows. Then I went to the Media Trust, where Daisy is at the moment, and I was there for the last 10 years. At Media Trust, I developed a groundbreaking Media Trust broadcast trainee program for young people who wanted to get into television. It was called London 360, and across 6 years, about 400 young people actually have gone through that program, and many have taken up senior positions across the TV industry. And actually, that's my younger mentee network, who are absolutely crucial to my networking. And as head of youth at Media Trust, I also oversaw programs where we ran radio podcasting, vlogging, programs with YouTube, ITV News. So thousands of people across the UK's nations and regions were part of that, and those organisations still today are part of my regional network. So I guess you pick up different networks as you start acknowledging them. And then last year I was approached by Netflix UK to come and work for them, and that was definitely because of my network, because a young man I'd given an internship to at MTV, God, maybe 10-15 years ago, who is now one of the heads at Netflix globally, had recommended me to his peers. So that's how my younger past network helps me in my future. And over the past 8 years, I've also been reporting regularly for Channel 4 News. So I do lots of arts and culture segments around music and culture there. And I juggle that along with all my other networks. So it's about TV, juxtaposing with radio and a bit of digital. I do stories for Sky News. I appear on the Jeremy Vine show on Channel 5. And yeah, all of these things have come from my network. So I occasionally write opinion pieces or expert thought pieces for different print platforms like Huffington Post or the Metro. And I'm also a member of a few industry panels like the BAFTA industry, the RTS, the BPI Music Equality, the MOBOs, the BET Awards. So lots and lots of different trade bodies means that my formal network juxtaposed with my informal network means that I'm very well connected. And so that's me. And I'll pass on now to Simone.
Gosh, I really hoped you pass on to Andrew, you know. Like, my gosh.
I'm so glad you didn't pass on
Andrew,
to me.
I not pass to you.
Oh, God.
Oh my gosh. So I'm Simone Pennant, and I run an online resource networking group that supports people of colour that work in TV. We've been running this for about 15 years, and we have two primary functions. Number one, to spotlight talent, because obviously around the diversity space, there's often a conversation that says that people can't find the talent. So our primary objective is to spotlight talent. And then secondly is to create paid opportunities. And we do this in a variety of ways. So with the kind of general TV Collective network, we'll do events, we'll do online. Obviously a lot of stuff has moved online, but we used to do kind of lots of networking events where there'll be opportunities for people to come along and meet talent managers. We will do kind of talent saloons. We'll do career clinics where people can come along and get career advice and masterclasses, some of the industry experts coming along and sharing their expertise as well. So we kind of do lots of stuff like that. But what we tend to do, and it's a real pleasure to be here with you guys, but our focus tends to be slightly more senior, those working senior, because in terms of diversity, that tends to be such an issue in terms of getting decision makers from diverse backgrounds. So we do a lot of work with senior, currently working with Channel 4. We're doing a program called the Accelerator Program, which matches 10 production companies with channel genre heads at Channel 4 to get them to work towards series commissions. So that's to really jumpstart the production community, the production company communities. We're also running a leadership program to kind of encourage more senior leaders in TV. We've got 51 people of colour that have worked in the industry for over 8 years or more. And we work with them over the year, and they've had coaching and mentoring and kind of having a breakthrough. We call it breakthrough leaders. So we're trying to get to their breakthrough. Very, very excited. I haven't told many people, you guys are the first to know that we've got that refunded, and we're running that again next year. So really excited about that. So, and I'll talk a little bit more about that, and then maybe people that you know that might be interested in doing that. And we run loads, like I said, we run loads of kind of networking opportunities and connect. So if you guys want advice, you've got RTS. If you're Australian, the diversity is driving you crazy, come along and see us. Come and talk to us. Andrew, sir, over to you.
Thank you very much. Bloody hell, Jasmine, that's an impossible act to follow. So my story is TV, passionate TV practitioner through and through. So where I am today is I work for Warner Brothers, managing and leading their international TV production group around the world. I'm responsible for all of the creative and production activities of 23 production companies in 14 countries, including 4 in the UK. And then I've got a sales team who handle sales of formats and unscripted programming around the world. So in the sense, I'll sort of come on to sort of having a world network as opposed to just the UK. But my background before that was always within the UK. So as a kid, I always wanted to work in television. I've been doing this, oh crikey, I think it's probably 30 years now. So sort of had holiday jobs until I graduated from university, which in those days, I then started as a runner on feature films. And I was the only person who'd been to university on a feature film. So I turned up as a runner and got nicknamed the Professor. That's how much things have changed. But I sort of had to ask to take a day off to go and graduate, and they all thought this was the funniest thing in the world. So went from features to then going into TV, and sort of through luck, and whatever we talk about today, the biggest thing is luck in this industry, but you sort of make your own via networking. That's my view, which is luck and networking is so intrinsically linked. But ended up production managing some television shows, and then through luck ending up in BBC Strategy and Commissioning just as they were setting that up. And then because somebody had lost an umbrella, I ended up at January. I sort of, the chairman of Tiger Aspect had left an umbrella on one of our productions, and I worked out how to get it to him. Ended up at Tiger Aspect for 14 years and ended up running that. And then sort of opportunity came to join Warner Brothers, and have done that for about the last 12, 13 years. So not a huge amount of moving around, but dealing with a huge range of people, both on screen, off screen, broadcasters, producers. And then again, due to sort of luck and inefficient democracy, ended up running Pact when I was relatively young at sort of 30. So at that point, I suddenly got introduced to every single indie in the UK, plus every single broadcaster. So that's my background. And again, like Jasmine, the sort of networking, sometimes it fills me with fear and dread. Sometimes you think, oh no, that'll be quite good, and the occasion will be quite good. But the sort of range of emotions it elicits and the need for luck, I suppose, are the two themes we'll keep coming back to.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Stuart. Andrew, I'm not sure it's that much luck, but it's very humble of you to say so. And thank you so much. And I'm sure, as all of you can see, a real sort of range of experience and varied skills in the room. But the one thing that really, really does join all these people that we are so lucky to have together is the fact that networks have been very, very crucial to their career. And actually, Simone, I just wanted to come back to you for the first question, because obviously Jasmine kind of picked up on the diversity aspect and sort of how important networks are for kind of diversity and inclusion, but also the fact that sometimes, you know, you can feel like the only voice in the room, or that, you know, you are there for some kind of quota filling. But what advice would you give to someone that is really keen on D&I, say, and wants to kind of start their own more formalized network? How did the TV Collective begin, and how would you, what advice would you give that person?
It's a great question. I mean, before starting the TV Collective, I was a researcher and then went to be producer. And back in those times, like most people that were in the industry, got really frustrated with the types of jobs. So I was often offered jobs on kind of like programs I loved, and they were great. So I did the Heart of Hearts, and they were great programs, and programs that often reflected issues in my community, or about, you know, sink estates and stuff like that, which was great, and they're important stories to tell. But nobody ever rang me for Come Dine With Me or kind of A Place in the Sun, or all these kind of other lighter programs, all these hard, gritty programs, and started getting frustrated. What was happening is that you start speaking to others, all your peers, and there's a similar frustration. And there was a need to kind of bring people together in some kind of way so we can discuss the conversation. Now, just very quickly, I'll tell you a story. I was invited to a meeting down at Channel 4. Una King was there. I think she was head of diversity. So this is a very long time ago. She all had us around the table and we were talking. And at this point, I'd been in the industry for a few years, and we'd had these conversations over and over and over and over again. And when I said, you know, I'm so fed up. I'm so fed up of talking. I can't talk anymore. And kind of threw my hands up and ran out of the room. And I was like, I've had enough. I was kind of really frustrated and was really taken aback. I was quite embarrassed. And I thought, oh my God, I'm like just became the stereotype that everybody thinks, like an angry black woman with a chip on her shoulder. And I don't want to leave Una. This is the first time she's met me. I don't want to leave her with that impression. So I decided to contact everybody in the group and say, listen, it was a great meeting. I'm setting up this little, at the time it was Facebook. I'm setting up this Facebook group so we can continue to discuss the issues that Una brought up. And Una, I would like to invite you along. And that right there was the birth of the TV Collective. So actually having this network of people that were just people. So networks, I think that we use this term networks, but it's just people you know. Most of us work in the industry because we like people. We're curious about people. We're interested about people. So just leaning into that and kind of asking people, do you know what I mean? Where, you know, how you just connecting, talking, saying, can we, you know, I'm feeling frustrated. How are you feeling? Sharing, supporting, those things can be so vital. And also just one last point before I finish off, particularly if you're from a diverse background, never underestimate your own networks that you come with. to kind of, because actually a lot of the mainstream TV won't have those kind of networks. So if you have interest in any, and actually that goes across the board, but I think it's really pertinent if you're from a diverse background, but actually across the board. So if you know people in music or in, I don't know, history, these networks become really important, and you don't know when they're really useful. So don't just think about networking as this kind of industry thing that I've got to go along and talk to people to get jobs. What your job is to do from now on is collect people. That's what I do. I collect people. Everywhere I go, I just collect them. I collect their name. I'm really curious, so I talk to everybody. I talk to people at bus stops. And someone has an interesting story, I'll collect them, because you just don't know when these people will become useful. So collect people, make that your just make that your mantra. I'm collecting people rather than networking. I hope that was helpful.
Becoming a magpie of people. I love that. Very, very good. And I think actually, I just want to pick up on kind of something you said about, obviously it came out of a Facebook group, which I think is really interesting. And I think Facebook has sort of seen a weird resurgence, actually, especially over the pandemic, on people kind of reconnecting with Facebook groups as a way to sort of stay connected to little pockets of their communities. And also, I guess, as you say, if you are from a diverse or underrepresented background as well, it's a way to kind of stay in touch with people that you might not be in touch with in your day-to-day. And you don't know your superpower, you don't know what you're coming with until you start working in TV or in film. You don't really know. But I think picking up on the kind of the digital aspect, I guess, Andrew, how would you say the kind of digital virtual world in which we knew existed, but we now find ourselves in that much more, how would you say it's kind of helped or hindered your career over the last sort of 18 months?
Well, it's hindered my career, but it's made life less enjoyable because the only people I really get to speak to are people I know. And the colleagues I have around the office who are maybe, well, be hierarchical, but say 3 or 4 levels below me, who probably are quite nervous of me, or especially the ones who've joined the company in the last 18 months. I haven't been able to do what I normally do, which is wander around desks, have a coffee, make them feel awkward by talking to them in the lift, asking about them, because that's sort of slightly always been my style. And I'm a great believer in lifts and buildings in particular being a place where there should be an onus on more senior people to talk to everybody and make them feel comfortable and engage with them and ask them what they do, especially if they're working for you but you don't know them or what they're doing. So the serendipity part has completely disappeared, which is to the detriment of our business, because there's people who could be expanding their roles, expanding what they do, or I could be connecting with the sort of crossover between teams, whether it's a digital team helping out a marketing team or the creative team. All of those sort of things have pretty much evaporated. But I think the one exception to that is where we, and I think it's a sort of a tip for anybody on this, because the main thing about these events is bits of advice. So one of the things that digital virtual has allowed is events that might have previously been only for creative teams, you're able to open them up to everybody. So what we've done is we have creative events where we used to fly in the main 3 creators from each company around the world for 2 days and sit around and watch TV. We've now opened that up to 3,500 people around the world. Anybody within the group can. And for any of you in an organization that does any sort of event, I would say, oh, can I join that routine, that meeting, that virtual away day? You might get knocked back, but that is absolutely one of the distinct advantages, is that we can give access to people where there's normally a cost involved in them participating.
I think that's, yeah, I mean, there's so many things I want to pick up on that. Andrew, thank you so much. But I think the main one is something that you just said about you might get knocked back, you know, and especially when you're at an earlier stage, I think you have to be aware that that is a risk that you take. So Jasmine, how do we take that kind of like risk and that fear associated inherently with networking? How have you taken that out of the networking thing, even though you said it's not your favorite? How do you think we take the fear out of it?
I think you just stop thinking about it as networking. You know, Simone said, she thinks about it as collecting people. It's about really thinking about making it fun and palatable for you. What's going to make sense to you? And, you know, it's an old cliche and they say your network is your net worth. And actually, I really, really now get that. If you work in TV already, whether you're researching people, getting expert voices, finding new talent, you're going to need a network. Or if you're not working in TV yet, you're going to need a network to celebrate your highs and lows and help you get that foot in the door. And so I think it's about taking the fear out of it and going, do you know what? What's the worst thing that can happen? I used to set myself challenges. So I would go to an event and I'd go, I really don't want to be here, but I'm going to stay for an hour. And I'd say to my friend, we'd go together and I'd say, each of us have to speak to 3 people. It doesn't matter who they are, 3 strangers. We're going to go, who are you? What do you do? Here I am. Let's exchange, as Simone says, contacts, collect people, and then you can leave. So you don't have to stay there all night making small talk because it's exhausting. Networking and making conversations with new people and strangers, you know, smiling and nodding and keeping eye contact and worrying about making a good impression. And of course, they go tell you what their name is and you can't remember. They've just told you it because you're so busy smiling and nodding. It's exhausting. It's emotionally taxing. So it's about trying to go, do you know what? I'm going to turn up for an hour. This is my challenge. And then I'm going to leave. And that way it doesn't become so emotionally exhausting. And actually, I made a list for you guys because I know that when you take out the time to come to an hour like this, you're like, even if you leave with 1 or 2 or 3 bullet points that you can go, right, I'm going to go with that because that made sense to me. It's all worth it. So I'm going to run through a list of bullet points for you. If you've got a pen or a paper or put it down in your digital, whatever you've got in front of you, your iPad or your laptop. So what I was going to say was, think about your networking as 2 main areas. It's either networking within your comfort zone or networking outside your natural habitat, because once you balance those, it will really make sense to you. So building your own cultural tribes around you should be the easiest thing. And I used to do this thing on my BBC radio show where we would have 60 seconds to talk about our cultural tribes. So I'd introduce myself to people and I'd say, hey, everyone, my name's Jasmine Dotiwala. I'm part of the West London tribe, the Zoroastrian Persian tribe. I'm part of the hip hop tribe, the women in TV tribe, the, you know, and you just keep talking about yourself. Think about all the different cultural tribes you belong to. And then that will start making you personalize and shape your personal brand, because you need a brand, you need a personal brand. If you want to work in TV, having a presence on social media is crucial, because that's where people look for people, that's where people find people, that's where people network. So think about, what are your social circles based on? Is it music? Is it film, anime, sport? Activism is big. You know, just think about those different areas. Follow those people on Instagram and Twitter. Follow groups that are around your own passion projects and subjects, and then build a group around you. One of the best things I ever did when I was at MTV was when I was promoted into heading up 2 of the music channels that hadn't been doing very well. I had to go, oh my God, how am I going to make these channels work? And I thought about all my peers in the industry who had come up at the same time as me, and we started having dinners together once a month, and we'd go around the table. There was only 12 of us. We'd go around the table and go, what are you working on? And we'd each share what we were working on. We'd promote each other's projects together. We would give each other jobs and roles. We would think of each other for job opportunities. We would mention each other's names in job opportunities that we could. We were authentic with each other. We were vulnerable with each other. We trusted each other with quite confidential information. But what that meant was, as I grew, they grew. And as we all rose together in our ambition, our connection, we were each other's networks. And now those people are household names. They're either film stars or producers or directors or run TV and radio brands. So it's about building those peer groups. At the moment, you think, oh, we're all runners or we're all researchers or we're just starting out, but you'll grow together, because they say you are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with, right? If 5 of your friends are all ambitious, you're networking together, you're pulling each other up, you'll really fly. And I would say that my biggest tip there is also, don't worry about being the organizer. In that group of 12 people, I was always the one hitting everyone on email going, right, when's everyone free? Let's make a WhatsApp group. Right, I'll call everyone and go, why haven't you answered my WhatsApp? Are you available on that date? You sometimes have to be the galvanizer. And even though that seems like hard work when you think about it, actually, you're then the center of your hub and your network. You're the person holding that network together. So that's if you want to create your own personal network. And then networking outside your natural habitat, this is just quick bullet points, is recognize emerging tribes and movements early. I often spot new talent, whether they're comedians, actors, musicians. I spot new talent early, and I always pitch it to my peers and my bosses, and I'll pitch things months before they blow up in the mainstream media. You know, names like Stormzy and Big Nasty, when I first brought them to Channel 4, weren't famous. You know, they were in the underground music scenes that I belonged to. So recognize emerging tribes early, introduce people to each other, be a connector, be a plug. So if you see that that person would go really well with that program or project, bring them together. Be an ally to the groups that you're not a part of. So I'm a straight Asian African. I'm
sorry. Yeah,
Someone is not
sorry.
on mute.
I'm a straight brown cisgendered female in television production. What's that funny smell?
Got it.
But also I attend talks and discussions around LGBT or gender or ability, and I think you need to be a part of lots of conversations. Identify strong advocate voices. There's always going to be times where your bosses or your peers say, who knows someone who can talk about this or that. Accept invites to lots of different industry events, especially if they're free. And speaking of free things, sign up for anything that gives you free support or mentor programs. So Simone mentioned to you, she's founded the TV Breakthrough Leaders program. That's 50 people that are in TV and want to be supported to higher levels. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, I'm in and I'm signed up and I'm part of that program, and I get a mentor and I get a coach for that. Why would you refuse free support? So it makes no sense not to take all the things that are out there in the stratosphere for you. And, you know, like I said, set yourself a time limit and a connection challenge. Turn up at networking events, say, I'm going to stay for an hour, I'm going to speak to 5 new people, I'm going to be on for a whole hour, and then I'm going to go. Apply for lots of jobs. There's so many opportunities that I've got from applying for jobs that sometimes I haven't got, but people have remembered me and then brought me back in as part of those teams. So do that. People will remember you. Join lots of industry organizations that are open to you. There are hundreds of orgs, Facebook groups for people that want to get into TV. What else?
Well, Jasmine, I was going to...
Level up, skill up. You know, the thing that I meant to say is, when I was coming up, you were an expert in one area, but now young people coming up in the TV and the screen industries, all my young people can shoot, they can edit, they can run digital and social media, they know about search engine marketing. So level up while you're bored at home doing nothing. Anything is learnable and coachable on YouTube, so do it. Be resilient. Not every connection that you make will want to stay connected, so don't take it personally. You know, don't be hurt. There's loads of times when I connect with someone, I go, oh, they're going to be my new best buddy, and then they're not my new best buddy, and I have to go, oh, they didn't love me that much. Don't take it personally. Nothing is personal. And you know, just doing all of that stuff will get you out there. It will get you remembered facially. Your name will come up. Look, I'm looking now and I'm scrolling down the names and I can see all the people that are here. I recognize 4 or 5 of you from events in the past. People will remember you. So it's just about making those connections and being consistently delightful. That is one thing that I always say to people. If you are coming into this industry, you do for work what most people call fun and pleasure. It's a real perk and an honor. So honestly, be consistently delightful. Even if you don't want to transcribe hours and hours of interview or run and make coffee, if you are always consistently delightful and you deliver, you will progress and you will promote yourself.
I love, wow. Okay, so, well, Andrew, I'm actually going to pick up on something Jasmine said and come to you next. So I was just going to say, so Jasmine obviously talks a lot about how kind of personality feeds into your network and about how not to take things personally. But what would you say is your biggest kind of personal hindrance when it comes to networking? What is something that has been a real stumbling block?
Actually, I think the biggest issue, I think the biggest issue is work-life balance, because as Jasmine said, there are millions of, no, there's dozens of schemes out there, or initiatives, or events that you can go to, but there are only so many hours in the day. So I think being targeted about what you want to do is really important. Obviously, it's different stages of life, but the thing that sort of slightly messed up my networking, which I did a lot in my 20s, was getting married and having kids. And at sort of 29, all of my networking stopped. I was lucky by then that, and I think this taps into something I'm sure Jasmine and Simone would say, is this isn't a sprint, it's a long race. And the key part of that is the people you make friends with, develop relationships with, connect with in your early 20s in the career, they will rise up. And that's why I remember looking around when I was 23, 24, going, God, they all seem to know one another. And there's a very simple reason. They'd all been around so long and grown up together. So for me, it was accepting that there was a sort of a work-life balance, that you didn't want to, oh, your lights have gone out, Daisy, you need to wave your arms. And so there were times when I'd want to be in places or want to do things, and I'd have to miss them and just accept that.
Okay, so, well, hopefully the take home is not don't have kids. But
no, the take home don't have kids. But just to recognise that there is a balance there. But the balance is important because, again, it comes back to, and it's what Simone was saying about collecting people. And actually, a lot about being in television is storytelling and telling interesting stories. And that doesn't just come from TV folk telling stories to TV folk. It comes from having a mate who's a musician who you can ring up when someone goes, actually, let's talk about the creative music process, or somebody who's a librarian who can access different ways of research. So it's the wider group, the wider ecology of your relationships and connections.
Yeah, and I think that you know, ecology that spans like lots of different levels and you know, you could have your parent network, for example, of people, as you say, work-life balance, that recognize that, you know, you actually need that time with your children, and that's a really nurturing thing. And potentially, and that's a big thing, raising films have a whole network of parents who are coming back into the industry, returners to industry, so I think that can be a network as well. Okay, and Simone, I would just say, I'm just going to pick up on another thing that kind of Jasmine and Andrew both said, is they both spoke about sort of how mentorship and mentors, and this is my favorite topic because obviously I run mentoring programs. How would you say that mentorship, both formalized and informal, kind of feeds into networking? How important is it for your career when it comes to networking?
I mean, it's just, I think, like I say, the kind of term networking just makes it sound so heavy. It's collecting people, it's talking to people, it's being curious about people. It's understanding that what it is that you want, these people will be able to help you. So finding people that are slightly more senior than you, that can give you advice and guidance and support you, is essential. Do you know what I mean? Building people, talking to people. If you can't talk to people, you're scared to talk to people, you're probably in the wrong industry. Because actually, it's all about storytelling. It's all, like Andrew said, it's all about storytelling. It's all about talking to people. This is what we do all the time. So actually, you've got to be a little detached. And when you get into these events, if you go to an RTS event and you see that there's some kind of supersonic director that's you really admire, get it out of your head. He's still a person. You know what I mean? Make sure you know a little bit more information about them. It's just have a conversation. And actually, the more you conversate and talk, it's amazing how it can be such, like we've all said, these people grow with you. You just never know when people are useful. So networking is important. And yes, we need to be formal and think about how we're going to network. But actually, really, it's about connecting with people. Really, it's about thinking about people that you're really inspired by. A mentor is somebody that you're really inspired by and actually is a part of their career that you may want to reach. So actually reach out to them. Don't ask them for a job. Just reach out and say, I'm really inspired by the work that you're doing. And can I come and, you know, maybe grab a coffee and get some advice? So kind of get out of your head, get out of yourself. This is about your career. It's important to you. Get to the place where you want to be and think about those around you that can help you get there. So it's about connecting with people. Networking, yes, but connecting, being friendly, making friends. If you're not, like I said, if you don't want to talk to people, you're a bit nervous about talking to people, you're in the wrong place, get detached. And when you go to these events, it's just about another person that I'm going to go and speak to. That is, you know, they may have a great job, but they're just another person and they've got interest. And try not to talk, you know, don't ask for a job, be interested in what they are. and find out about people, do some research so you know when you're speaking to someone, there's some basic stuff that you might be able to say, particularly if there's a guest list of people that are going to attend that you can research before. Yeah,
do your homework. And as you say, Simone, don't kind of pedestal your mentors, pedestal your networks. That's not helpful. You know, that everyone is a person just like everyone else. And, you know, as we all know, everyone here started as a runner. Like,
can I pick up on a question from Sarah? Sarah, is it rude to ask for a job? It's not that it's rude to ask for a job, but can you imagine being in a space where somebody, you're having a drink, someone comes and asks you for a job? Sometimes for somebody, it might be really awkward to say no, or really difficult for that person that you're talking to. So it might not be how you want to make that person feel awkward. So actually, the easiest way I always find is to ask for just some advice. You know, can I, you know, I'm inspired by your work, can I hang out? And also the other tip for me, anytime I meet anybody, particularly if they're really senior, I always email them first thing in the morning, because I have this thing that when people get to their desk, they always look at their emails first. So from at the top, it's a likelihood that I'm going to be seeing rather than emailing in the afternoon. Because, like, you know, who's Simone? They don't know that Monday morning at 9 a.m. best time to email. They're at their desk, they're going for Simone. No, I don't know who she is, but I'm going to respond to her. So just being a little bit strategic in terms of how you're reaching out to people. But it's more about, you know, I want to get to know, you know, I'm really inspired by what you do. It's about how you make them feel when they're around you, about enrolling people, right? And just saying, yeah, I'm inspired by what you do and I'd love to learn more. And the time to ask for a job will come naturally. Seriously, or you'll be even offered a job. Just kind of maintaining those networks is really important.
Yeah, I think
and then they'll offer you one.
It's that thing of advice, because if you ask someone for advice, you make them feel worthy, respected, you flatter them. And then the follow-up email the next morning, it's a simple thing, but you've then got a connection. They've got the email. Chances are, at a certain level, they've got a PA who's then filing that person away. It begins that process. One thing I was going to say was going across levels of the industry is obviously a slightly more challenging one. So if you can identify occasions where you can do that, it's really good. And one of the ones I was fortunate when I was very young, which I think is still relatively straightforward, is awards, because all organizations pretty much have some sort of awards ceremony and judging panels and categories. And I know this is true of the RTS, they used to be desperate for a wider range of people, wider range of age groups. They've obviously got a wider range of genres than they'd have had 15 years ago. They've got digital, they've got social media. If you're a member of an organization, let the awards committee, and there will always be an awards committee of some sort, let them know that you'd be really interested in being on a judging panel, because it's a brilliant way to sit in a room with everyone for a morning or an afternoon, and all voices are equal when you're on a judging panel, and it's also totally free. So that's definitely one thing I'd urge people to look at as an opportunity.
Can I just quickly, sorry, Sarah, I didn't answer your question properly. You were saying, is it rude to ask for a job from your mentor? No, it depends on the relationship that you've built with your mentor and how you've enrolled them. But just consider that if you ask them for a job and they feel quite awkward to say no to you, that can be really uncomfortable. So maybe it's not about asking for a job. I always think the advice thing, and for what Andrew said, it makes people feel validated and worthy and seen. And no matter how senior you are, you still have your insecurities, so you still want those and need those things, so it's still important. So maybe not necessarily, you have to really kind of build a relationship and feel whether it's right, but I would be less likely to ask any of my mentors for a job. I'd ask them for advice. So, you know, I want this job, can you advise how I would guess around? And they'll generally offer themselves up and generally offer your support in that way. Sarah, I really hope that answers your question clearer than when I did before.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much to our panelists. We really appreciate your time. Have a lovely evening.
And thank you all for networking and joining.
Thank you.
Good luck, everyone.